It's the appointed time, 9 o'clock. So I invite you to stand with us, and we'd like to begin with a prayer and then a pledge to the flag, if you'll join with us in those. I'm going to call on County Employee Kevin Kennedy to open the meeting with prayer, please.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for this day you've allowed us to be a part of. Lord, we ask you to be with us during this meeting time this morning, Lord. Lord, we pray for your grace and your help with the storm as it's headed our way. We ask you to help those people in that area of the United States get out safely, Lord, and there be no fatalities. Lord, thank you again for all your many blessings. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Before we join in the pledge, let me ask us to observe just a moment of silence in honor of those, or in memory of those that lost their lives in 9/11. You may remember that about just a little over an hour ago at this time, the first plane hit the World Trade Center, and there were 2,977 lives lost, not counting the terrorist, and there were over 6,000 injuries through those events. So let's just bow for just a moment. Amen. Join us in the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. It truly is good to see you here this morning. We appreciate your interest in the business of the county and the commission. I know many of you are here with a specific item of business on your mind, and we welcome all of you. First item on our agenda is to accept public comments from citizens. And the topic of conversation today, for many of you, I think, will be regarding Pigeon Creek Bridge on County Road 107, commonly known as Lloyd Mill Road. And before we get into the public comment, I think it'd be advisable, Lynn, if you have some slides ready. Do you have those? I'm going to ask the engineer just to show, I think it's a dozen slides. We'll just flip through them really without comment, unless he wants to make a comment on them. Just so that all of the group here, most of you, maybe all of you know what we're talking about, but if you'll start that for us, and let's just flip through those.
We had a bridge, the state bridge team come down probably about first of the, just recently anyway. We had to back up our recommendation to close this bridge, and they were at the same agreement that we were as far as this, and this is what a lot of the slides show, some of their pictures and things of the bridge. But this bridge is 88 years old. This was a bridge that was accepted by the county by resolution back in 1971, but not without some disagreements with the state on if we were to actually be able to accept this bridge or not. And we actually, I think, accepted the road for maintenance, I think like in 1981 or so. And this time, I think there's only just a few years left on the actual service life of the bridge then. And you'll see in the slides the condition of the bridge, but it's for I'm only doing this out of necessity for public safety. It's not any other reason. I know it's an inconvenience for everyone in this room, but public safety is our concern here at our road department, and I cannot stand the thought of even one loss of life on this bridge. We've had several instances, and I know a lot of people that live in this area can probably vouch for this, what I'm about to say, that we have a lot of even log trucks crossing this bridge. It doesn't take but one log truck to go across this bridge, break it in, and they're not being aware of it, and then some unknown driver come up and actually fall off into this bridge. So if you will, we'll go through the slides and just kind of show the condition of the bridge and why we come to this conclusion. This is the condition of the bridge as it stands right now. There are several what we call false vents on this bridge, and we've got, I think, 89. There was 89 spliced wooden pile, which literally, when the pile were driven, the old pile were literally cut off at the ground, and a new piece just stuck in there and stuck back underneath it there. So this bridge has a lot of deficiencies in it. There's, like I say, five false vents plus some on the main tower.
Lynn,
with some corrections.
A comment about those the bents and the replacements. That's a common replacement technique.
Well, it's not a
But
replacement, it's
but
just
it
a
doesn't-
patch.
But
It's
it
a
doesn't
patch.
give a longer life, really. It just gives a
No,
very
it-
temporary life.
it's yes.
Okay. Expansion.
Yes. All right, you can go to the next slide, Ron. This was, I believe, there's not a date on this, but you can see everything in red were actually the piles that were actually decayed back then. This was probably in the 70s or early 80s on this slide right here. You can go to the next slide. This was in '81, and you can see all the deficiencies with the marks on those piles then. That's the current conditions now, and that's the tower bent. It's actually over the main span of the river. There's been actual cross bracing and additional things done to this to help shore that up as well. Next slide. This is an example of a false bent, and the problem is all these joints were basically constructed on top of these bents, and water over the years have just gone into that area and rotted the bent caps at those locations and even the girders on the ends there. All right, next slide. This just showed a leaning pile and decay. It's hard to see in the picture, but that cap, that abutment cap there is actually split, and there's a lot of decay in that. You can even see the darkness of the girders above there with the water decay there at that cap. All right, next slide. This is a common occurrence. This is what we're talking about, the decay of the actual piles. It's hard to see, but you'll actually, in order to check these, we have to take a hammer and nail and actually beat on these to see the solidness of these wooden pile. But that's a good example of the decay of what we're looking at. All right, this is another example of your girders on the edge. You can see at the top picture. You can see the deformation of the girder and the settlement there at the cap, where the girder is actually rotted and it's starting to fall down right there. All right, next slide. This is an example of a cap that was actually cut off there, and you see the decay below it right there. And no more bearing. And no more bearing means no more weight to help push back on a load coming across the bridge.
Yeah, that's the old pilot there. It was cut off.
This is some of the guardrail that was damaged during an accident along the bridge here. And that again just shows some of the decay of just a typical decay of the girders there on top of the cap there. You can see it's how it's just mashing into the cap. Everything's starting to compress down. This is on the tower bent. You can see the condition of the steel pile. And this is just over years. Like I said, this bridge is 88 years old, and we're going to have that. That's just a part of it. This is actually, we have a false bend at this location, but this is what happens when you have a decayed pile. You'll start having a mushrooming effect or either a complete failure of those piles. And we're looking at routes and detours for this, and by no means are any of these routes set in stone, so just keep that in mind. We're just for estimate purposes. We actually have a meeting with our highway director, our state highway director, Tuesday at 9 to discuss these options, to go over this. But basically the route from Berry Road to the Brooks Church there on 55 is roughly 1.74 miles, 1.174 miles.
Bridge right there.
And it's roughly a little over 8 miles. 8.4 miles will be the detour length to get back to that common point there at Brooks Church right there. We have, like I said, 3 routes proposed, and like I said again, by no means are these set in stone, but most of these are on timber management property, so it wouldn't affect hardly any landowner. There are some that it could possibly affect, but like I said again, these are not set in stone. But this right here would go from Berry 255. This would be the closest route, and it's actually the shortest route. It's roughly, I think, 0.97 miles, and your new route will be roughly 3.27 miles. Route 2 is just east of the Memorial Road intersection that comes down right there, and that would be all on company land there with that route. One of the reasons we actually chose this route, there's some drainage, and it would require less of a bridge structure to cross the main tributary there that's in that drainage area there. And this is probably our least route, because you don't really gain a whole lot, because you're just lengthening your actual length where you want to get to. And it's about 1.4 mile in length of new construction. But that's probably the least favorable route that we have on our, is what we're looking at here. That's all.
All right, thank you, Lynn. So those are the issues that we're facing on the bridge, and I know that a number of you are here to express comments on that. Let me tell you what the commission rules are, adopted a couple of years ago, and even prior to that by previous administrations. During public comment periods, we'd like to ask speakers to limit themselves to about 3 minutes, and I'll keep time. And would like to ask also that a speaker limit your visit to the mic to 1 time during this, because there may be many others that want to speak. It's easy to begin to come back and forth and ping pong back and forth, so we'll limit one visit per person to the mic, and that's unless a commissioner raises a question or directs you to come back and clarify something. That would certainly be appropriate. Often the comments will get repetitive, and if we see that happening, for the sake of everybody here, I would like to have the privilege of maybe limiting comments at some point when it becomes repetitive and we're not learning new facts. But I would like to invite anyone who wants to speak to come to the microphone. There's a recording being made, and that helps with that. So I invite you to come to the mic. Please tell us your name, and then make comments that you would like to make about your thoughts about the bridge and its historical significance. Lynn mentioned it being 80-something years old. I believe it was built in 1931. Does that sound right? 1930? 1930. And in 1971, the commission agreed, with a number of conversations, to accept responsibility for Old 55, and that bridge was part of that. Some later Attorney General opinions suggested that the state couldn't force the county to be responsible for cost of maintenance of the bridge unless the county agreed to accept it. So anyway, a lot of conversation, a lot of history, and we'll open the floor for anyone that would like to make comment on this now. Morning.
My name is Michael Bush. I've been crossing this bridge since 1965. We're well aware of the structure trouble. What we need today is a promise we'll get an alternate route before it's closed or shut down. We've been silent due to the newspaper article said we've been silent for 5 years. We left that last meeting 5 years ago. I was here for the promise that we look for 8-trip funding or an alternative route or keep it open at a 3-ton limit. We've all tried to do our best to maintain the traffic. We've chased down log trucks, followed them my own self, got their DOT numbers, called them in. We've done everything possible we can to keep our end of the bargain. We're here to ask you to be men of integrity. And if you don't build a bridge, make us a way. Because the ones that aren't here today work, and a lot of them work north. And I'm reminded of another natural disaster that happened in 2001 on March 12th. When a tornado came and tore 3 houses up on this road. 2 deaths, one being my mom, one being my niece. The other man that was in the house that flew over 100 foot was saved because an ambulance picked enter from the north end and cross the bridge. So when you think about this, we people of District 4 may not be as populous as the others, but we're one of the 4 children of this county. And would you choose one child over another? You need to think about that. Would you leave one in the fire? Or would you leave one in trouble? We're just asking for help. I drive a school bus for the county. I've turned around for 2 years at the mouth of this bridge, in that curve, pick up children in the dark, in the daylight. There's 4 bridges, 5 miles from my house. I can't cross in my county school bus. We need to begin to work on infrastructure of this county. And we need to begin to work on it now, because the car you drive needs maintenance, but it's not going to last forever. So we ask you today, from the bottom of my heart, to consider the people of the north end of this county that pay taxes every day, every time we come to town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
As long as they keep it open, they need to put some signs down there to keep more than one vehicle off of that bridge. I went through a funeral procession from Georgiana down there, and all the cars ahead of me, they were 15 or 20 on that bridge at one time. And you pull up there and ain't nobody there, and you're going across, you meet somebody, and he'll be blowing his horn, flashing his lights so he can pass me on it. And if they, another car following a car, that puts 2 on it, and you pass one, that puts 3 on it. They need some signs up there designated, and it's one way only or something or other, because nobody pays attention to that weight limit. And I don't know if we'd ever put signs up there, but it wouldn't hurt nothing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell us your name.
George Chester.
Okay, Mr. Chester, for the record. Thank you.
All righty. And if they're gonna close that bridge, they do need to open up another route, because there's a lot of people going north to the little store, or going north for whatever business. There's a lot of people crossing that bridge. I know y'all counting it, but
About 200 cars a day, yes, sir.
there's a lot of people go across that bridge. And that bridge is just as important to us as the one you build over on them other rivers. And it looked like to me that they could maybe have, if they're gonna put a new bridge in there, shorten up the length of the bridge some way or another by adding dirt and putting good pilings in there or whatever. If they're gonna repair it, they really need to. We thank y'all.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much,
sir.
Mr. Chester.
Chairman White, County Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, my name is C.N. Lloyd. I have had this responsibility before. Newspaper article said if we have to replace every bridge in this county that needs replacing, we'd be replacing 159 bridges. We're not asking the commission to replace 159 bridges. We're asking it, as we have since 1977, to repair one. I don't operate with what ifs. What if this had happened? What? I operate with what is. As far as other bridges in the county needing replacement, y'all deal with that. I think ours needs to come first because we've been waiting the longest. There have been bridges built since then that could have been left off. Roads have been paved since then that could have been left out. The bridges, like you said, the bridge is important to us, and I'm sure it's just as important to us as Braswell Road was important to the hundreds of thousands of people that live on it. There's been property bought, some from a former commission chairman. Bet we got a good deal on that land. Ball fields and boat ramps have been built that could have waited for a more appropriate time, but for where they were and who they serve. This county pays for 2 professional engineers. One of them makes about $115,000 a year, maybe. the other probably a bit less. The point is, if I were sitting where some of you were sitting, I think I could find enough cuts to come up with the short to make up for the shortfall. And this is a trivial shortfall. We all know, everybody in this room knows, $2 million, $2.5 million ain't a half a drop in the bucket compared to overall state expenses. So we would like to see so much money given away to other entities stop, because some of these entities have their own revenue enhancing programs that they can put. We all pay city taxes that belong to Andalusia every time we come to town to buy groceries, buy goods and services. And we'd like for representation of those who have neither the access nor the ability to implement the tax and spend of the barrel without a bottom, large S, that the more populous portions of the county use with impunity every day. The real reason this commission wants to close this bridge is that they know, as I know, as some of you know, the legislature has got to pass a statewide gasoline tax, or they've got to authorize a local option so that individual counties can. There's no other viable option rather than raise property taxes, and I don't see that happening. Infrastructure issues can then be addressed, but with this bridge off the table, that's going to make the pork belly projects for some of these politicians a whole lot easier to fund if they don't have to worry about this bridge. And the fact that closing the bridge is going to place an undue burden of between $650 and $950 per vehicle using current prices that you go to the pump and buy right now. That's an extra 4,500 miles a year by that route, by the shortest route. Representative Jones and Senator Hawley will assist in getting the needed funding, but only if they have a unanimous agreement by this commission. And understand, one negative side comment, even from a non-voting member of the commission, is all it will take to derail that. This bridge, with its homemade landing, is a current popular gathering place for campers, kayakers, and fishing. We've all seen them down there. You see them down there virtually every day, especially on the weekend. However, there's also evidence that there may have been a little meth operation going on under there. Now, if this sector of road is cut off and abandoned all the way back to Brooks, you can bet the criminal element is going to take over, and that's not what if. We know that's going to happen. The fishermen, the kayakers, the campers are not going to go back down there, and it's just going to be a den of criminals over there. It's going to become dangerous to the people that lives in the immediate area, and there are some elderly and some people who aren't near as adequately armed as I am to deal with the problem. So Mr. Wilder may be right in one aspect. It is about safety. It's safer to keep the bridge operating rather than to abandon it and let what's going to happen down there. Y'all know it's going to happen. It's too remote to be an ideal place for criminal activity. So I don't want to impugn on my 3 minutes, but that's what we're here for. And this is some of the considerations that may not have been taken into thought, given the rush to go fund other, more importantly, deemed projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. He had well prepared comments, and so I did let the clock run, just so you know. Didn't want to cut him off in midstream, but anyone else?
Lorenzo Carl. Hello. All right. We want to see when it started, finished, because this operation, there's 1 minute right there. Mr. Elmore rode down here, and I'm not going for or against this. this is what the establishment has done. They passed the money, had the money for his road to be passed. Has it ever been passed? They used it somewhere else. Now, y'all will say, we're gonna tear it out and do this. But you know what? You tear it out, hey, them folks don't matter to us. We're gonna come down here to Andalusia, or off. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Donna Hendricks. I am quoting from the Andalusia Star News, and it says on January the 29th, 2013, Star News stated that Chairman Bill Godwin said it made sense to close the bridge at a workshop meeting. Godwin stated there wasn't any money to replace the bridge and nowhere to get help. Godwin wanted the money to be used elsewhere. Okay, on March the 13th of the same year, the Star News stated, Godwin said the county could not afford replacement, but suggested a new road from 107 to Highway 55. Godwin said the commission would deliberate the issue at a later regular meeting. Okay, on that same Tuesday, March the 13th, there was a commission meeting about the Braswell project, which was started from the former administration, and the money was allotted in the current budget. The administration froze it because it wasn't properly authorized. Pam Steele was asked to search the minutes for the order. In the meeting after the crowd in favor of the road left, he asked the commission to rescind authority for engineer to solicit bids for Braswell Road. So there's your order. Okay, County Attorney Julie Moody said Elmore stated the county was in the best, the money was in the budget to pave the road, but the new administration froze the money. It was stated in the paper that the auditor had said the county was in the best financial shape it had been in the last 25 years. Okay, if the county was in the best financial shape it had been in the last 25 years, how come we did not get any funding for Pigeon Creek Bridge? Somewhere, something is not making sense there, and we all know Braswell Road was paved. I would like to know how much it cost to pave Braswell Road, because it was told to us it would take $2.5 million to build a bridge. So how much did it cost to pave a road? And in my opinion, a bridge is more important than a paved road, which our previous county commissioner lives on. So if I run for county commission, does that mean I can pave my dirt road that I live on? Thank you.
Fair questions, Ms. Hendricks. We'll take all that into account. And anybody else?
My name is Katie Chesser. We moved our family here before the beginning of the year, and the comment about the crime, if we close this bridge, really resonated with me because, you know, I'm bringing my family here, and since then I've seen so much crime in the news around this area, and it just scares me to think that if we did close this bridge, there could be more right down the road for me.
Yeah.
And I also will use this route to get to the hospital for my next child. So it's really important to me that there is a short alternative route before the bridge is closed.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
My name's Kylan Lewis, and I appreciate the opportunity to address this commission. I'm a resident of this district that has the bridge, and I'm also a registered professional engineer. I was asked to come to this meeting by some of the folks that are here. I've been across this bridge many times, and I've looked underneath this bridge and how my profession opinion of its condition and what might be done. There've got to be other options that we can look at that have not been looked at. What we have here is a situation, in my opinion, akin to a person that's been diagnosed with cancer. The doctor said, if you had come to me earlier, I could have saved you. The options now are to treat you, but you are doomed to die in due time, or we can do nothing and you will not live quite as long. What I see is a situation where the county, by poorly treating or not treating the bridge's condition, has doomed it to die. Whether it's your fault that it's going to be abandoned or not. You as a commission have neglected this bridge ever since the county acquired responsibility for it. You may deny that, but that's the truth. Promises have been made and money has been approved for it, I'm told. I don't know that for a fact, but I've been told that. But the can has simply been kicked down the road for someone else to deal with. Each commission has continuously done that. And I think that's been evident by the word that's been spoken today. This bridge was an issue during the last commission race. Promises were made to the people that use that bridge on a daily basis, such as first responders, farmers, and folks just going about their daily lives. There are solutions to this problem, but first it takes a desire of the commission to want to solve it. Right now, your solution is to just condemn it for use or tear it down. I would be more than glad to meet with the commission and county engineer to explore real solutions to this problem. First, you as a commission have to want to deal with this issue in a positive manner. I implore you to not abandon the good people that depend upon this bridge. There is an acceptable solution. You just have to be bold enough in your thinking to find it. I'll repeat that. You just have to be bold enough in your thinking to find it. As my mama used to say, there are many ways to skin a cat. You just need to look for an acceptable way to skin this one. Thank you for your time and also for your service to the people of this county.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
We are one of those people that have had that if the bridge was out and we did not have another route, we made 18 trips to Montgomery in August due to his illness. And that is 9 miles out of our way, one way. So that's 18 miles a day versus you said it was, I think James calculated on 9 miles, you said 8 point something. That's a gallon of gas. That's 18 extra gallons of gas in those days. I do agree with the gentleman that just got up and spoke, and I say shame on this commission. Not maybe y'all personally, but whoever before y'all that has not taken this problem seriously. That bridge means a lot to us to get to that 4-lane. So we just ask y'all to consider that, please. Remember us. We are important. I'm sure y'all probably think we are. But we are very important. We do pay taxes. We love our community. That bridge does have sentimental values for some of us. But that's not what we're asking you to reconsider for. Because I'm sure all of you have sentimental areas in your community. That's what makes them special. And those areas represent the people, not the real bridge, but the people whose lives have surrounded that. So that's all we ask of them. But the one thing we do want is that you do not do anything with that bridge until you find us an alternate route. That's what I'm talking about right here. Because we would go 9 miles one way, out of our way, every time we have to go to Montgomery. And we're not the only ones, and I worked in Greenville for 23 years. And that's the way I went, except for the times it was flooded, and there was a few times. But you're talking about costing us money too. So there's a whole lot more to this than just saying we're gonna close the bridge, and thank y'all.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
I'm Ronnie Hendricks, have a brief comment about traffic counts. It was cited that according to various traffic counts that the road does not handle enough traffic to warrant any further investment in the structure. But when we consider where the counters were placed, even someone with nominal intelligence would immediately realize that the counters were positioned to completely bypass one and sometimes two major feeder roads on County Road 107. About 2 months ago, there was a counter at Mr. Vernell Berry's house, which bypassed Berry Road, and a year or so ago, the counter was just north of Chester Wells' store, which bypassed both Berry Road as well as Pigeon Creek Road. We need to get the bridge to a 3-ton standard, maintain that standard, and keep our word, and maybe some of you can keep your jobs, and maybe you can work for us, and we will not hesitate to think about that the next time you're elected. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Anna Bush, and I'm nervous because I don't like speaking in front of people. My family is one of those families that's going to be put out of place. Whew, I swear I don't want to try to. Okay, I'm sorry. My nerves are shaking. My husband and I sat down and counted up. We cross that bridge 40 times a week, at least. My children attend McKenzie High School. I cross it going to and from every morning, taking them to and from, picking them back up. Practice in the afternoons, game days on Saturday. My husband works in Chapman. 9 miles around, and we live on we're a one-paycheck family. We live on a tight budget. Extra gas going all the way around would destroy our budget. It would kill us. Paying for 2 vehicles to make that trip. Him going, just him going around, making that extra 9 miles a day, extra 18 miles a day, would mean an extra 2 gallons of gas or 2 tanks of gas in his truck just to go to work. Our children going to school, game days, we use it every day. And for me, like, I know everybody else in this room uses it, and I'm seconding and thirding what other people have said. But it is important to our community. It is very important to our community. The meal, I'm one of those crazy people who just love to look at the history of the fact that meal is still standing there. And I love to stop and take pictures of it. If the bridge is gone and the bridge is out, it'll be forgotten about. It'll be a piece of history just left to sit there and rot, and nobody will get to enjoy it. But I'm looking at it from an economic standpoint for just my family. It would cost us a lot of money just taking those extra trips around, just for us. And I'm sorry, I do not like speaking in front of people.
Sorry.
But I was asked to do that on behalf of my family, because none of the rest of them could be
Okay.
here. So I think
Well,
Thank you, ma'am.
you gained courage as you spoke, so you did good, Anna. Thank you.
I won't do good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm Robert Morris, maybe you know the Fire Chief of Buck Creek. We've heard a lot of great information. We know a lot of facts. Your slide was a good slide, but probably nobody up that way don't know condition of the bridge. Okay? We've been here before. Some of you was here. I don't know if you knew. concerning with the 3-ton limit. Now, we have 5 trucks in our fleet. 2 of them can cross that bridge. We cover brooks and all that here. If you close that bridge without an alternate route, that makes us go the 9 miles extra. All of our vehicles. How many minutes is it gonna take? How many deaths it might bring? How many homes that we might save? Something that you need to consider. We could get up here and tell you a lot of things, but the facts is the facts. The last time we was here, commissioners signed off that you were gonna make sure the bridge wasn't closed, you were gonna even try to fix it, or make the alternate route. Some of you was here. The same day you went to the paving the road. We ain't got nothing against paving the road. Look all over the county. All the schools and some of these stuff y'all doing, which is good for the children. But that bridge was supposed to have been at that time from your word. Try harder next time. You engineers, some says. We've been told that the engineers didn't want to make no friends. But we help put these people in. How many people do we represent? You see, how many you see here? How many families? How many of us in church? That's a lot of people. Sometimes just a few votes makes a difference. Y'all know that. And we can't get our senators or representatives to do anything that they already mentioned. And I won't repeat it till y'all sign off on it. Before commissioners, 2 of you sign off, 2 can hold up. Chairman's your place. All it takes, 1 of you have our commissioners, senators and stuff, and the project goes away. And y'all keep telling us that the finance of this county is the best it's ever been. On the county you in. Y'all want our vote. Y'all, man, I'm gonna do it. Put me in. That's what y'all tell us. Y'all want us to think y'all doing the best job they are to get our support. You may want to run again. But then you turn around and do these little projects here and yonder. Get money. Y'all know right now y'all got money to make an alternate route, or you could pack it up. The engineer said here, it ain't just one deal. You already made your mind up probably before we got here. We want you to know something. We ain't gonna be sitting quiet. We have influence throughout all this county. You're gonna need us again. And every one of you sat here that won't. Sometime or another. You need to remember that. Basically, you work for us. You engineer supposed to work for these commissioners. I know the system's changed. Most of the time, you take care of everything with your assessors. They can suggest that, but until you county commissioners get together, sort of like in Montgomery, Washington, fighting against each other. You need to start thinking about voting people, who you represent. You need our help. So what I was all asking, if you take the bridge completely out, it's gonna do away with the Forest Service rescue in some cases in that area. We've been working on a situation since it's for the load limit. But we at least could take 2 trucks and be there doing things while we could get the big trucks to us. If you take it all out, what you want to do? That's going to put it minutes. Minutes is vital in all of our emergency service. That's what counts, minutes. We volunteers. It's automatic, it'll take certain length of time for us to get all the trucks and get on to the situation. And if you put more minutes, a decision y'all make taken away from us, how many lives might be gone? Something I want y'all to think about. Remember, you've been put in at a it's not guaranteed you'll stay. But what you do helps you get your votes. You can't tell me that. And there's more than just for what's in your room. As I said again, I won't repeat myself, and I don't want to run out of time. Cut me out. I'm probably done over. I'm a man of few words. They said a few thousand. Yeah. Think about this. You in the news, you probably done made up your mind money-wise. Y'all talking about money-wise. Hey, consider it. Us that support, try to save people's lives. Give us more minutes if you can. Okay? Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh.
Good morning.
Morning.
How are y'all? My name's Robin Curvin. I live in Pigeon Creek. I've got a couple of questions. Hazel Bridge has just been built. That's on a dirt road. One end of it, nobody lives there. It's not a very traveled road. I'm pretty sure Pigeon Creek Bridge is more traveled than Hazel Bridge. Barnes Bridge, same way. Pigeon is on a paved road. All these other bridges, there's been 4 bridges built on dirt roads. Pigeon's on a paved road, access in and out. People traveling to work. If you close that bridge, what are these people gonna do? Another dirt road? Build another dirt road for access, way to get to north? That ain't right. I don't travel on dirt roads. I live all around dirt roads. My vehicles, I don't like traveling on dirt roads. They're bumpy, they're never maintained. We closed a road on our property, which was never maintained. The Curvin Road, it's got gullies in it right now where you can't drive on that dirt road due to the bumps. It's not maintained. This road needs to be maintained. The bridge needs to be back. It's a well-traveled road. Lynn, I think you said over 200 people a day go over that bridge?
200 vehicles a day, yes.
Okay. What about Barnes? How many people go over that bridge a day?
I don't think we're prepared to answer those questions. We'll make note of those, but we don't have those answers here.
So y'all didn't monitor that road like you monitored
I'm sure they did at the time, but it's been several years since that was built, several years.
So in all the money that FEMA has gave to the county for bridges and highway, there's none of that left?
I don't think that applies to that bridge.
The standard
Doesn't apply to
procedure
that.
is to reimburse monies that are spent. They approve the projects, the county does the project, and you get a reimbursement for the project.
Well,
So.
didn't FEMA approve Pigeon Creek Bridge?
Not that I'm aware of. Is that on FEMA? I don't think so.
Well, Lord Mill Road. What it was called was Lord Mill.
Yeah.
Lord
There may
Mill.
have been some damage on the road itself, but I don't think the bridge was under a FEMA project. But if it was, I'm wrong.
I don't believe there's any. Most of the dirt roads, the way FEMA works, they get a declaration. The FEMA team comes down, we do project worksheets, and we look at damage per road. And you got to show physical damage to a road. We have replaced bridges. I got a FEMA bridge right now, Mitchell Road. It's been closed in District 1's commissioners. December 25th will be 3 years. We've been trying to get this bridge funded, but it was destroyed. The flood took the whole bridge. It moved the whole bridge, and FEMA came in to give us money to replace that. And we're just now getting the paperwork to get that one approved to do that.
So why can't y'all get FEMA to help us on Pigeon?
It takes a declaration. It takes a declaration and a damage to the actual
The
structure.
damage has to be from the event. It can't be the wear and tear. It has to be an event that caused the damage.
So none of this damage was due to any of the floods?
It's just the age. It's just
Not
the age of the
that
bridge.
they have assessed. When FEMA assesses, they would look at that, but there's not been any determination of that, no.
So who repaired the bridges when it was money there allotted for repairs?
Al MoDOT probably did some earlier repairs. I'm sure the county has done some maintaining
We've
ever
done
since then.
some, and like I said, the bridge, most bridges last 50 years. We're already at 76% longer than the actual life of the bridge. And the EBIT team that came down commended the county for making the bridge last as long as it has. But it's just reached its service life. Like I said, the timber pile is 88 years old. I mean, it's just an old bridge.
Is there any way you can shorten that bridge and
Hydraulic wise, I mean, y'all seen it flood already with the opening that's already there. Just really no way to shorten it.
and pave the rest? I mean, you can't,
If you-
that bridge is needed in our community.
We understand that. We do.
That bridge is needed.
Okay.
If you close it, it's not fair for us.
Yeah. Anybody else have a question or comment for Ms. Kervin or in response to her questions? Okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you, Ms. Kervin. Yeah. All right. Anyone else?
Hold on,
We,
we got-
one, oh, sure, come on. Yeah.
That bridge has been there longer than I have, and I know it's old, I'm old. Sometimes a Band-Aid won't fix things. But I truly believe if you searched, the monies could be come up with for that bridge. Last year, that bridge saved my brother's life. He came back from the hospital, he had cancer, he had a trach. Tony's dead now, but the hospice people didn't leave the right suction machine that caught fire. They had just left with the ambulance, and I called and asked them. They were wanting to know where the closest place was to get coffee, because they had to go back on their route. So I told them about the giddy up and go right above the old store. And I called them, and they turned around and come right back. I'm a nurse, but I couldn't fix it because the machine didn't work. They came back with their portable machine. Tony was blue, and they saved his life because that bridge was there. They didn't have to go up and come around an alternate route. One life, how much does it cost? Put a thing on that. How do you sleep at night knowing our people up in our county would love to have that bridge repaired? Not no $2.5 million bridge, just fix what should have been fixed to start with. You know, I go across that bridge all the time. I used to use it daily. Now I don't have to. But there are people that need that bridge every day. James and Kathy Lee being an example. If it was you there where they were, wouldn't you want that bridge fixed? You can't tell me you can't come up with some funds somewhere to fix that bridge. Alternate route, that's Band-Aid. Why don't you do it? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Don't want to limit comment. All right, we'll close the public comment section.
Does Ms. Butler want to speak?
And I think we have one more.
Okay.
Ms. Butler wants to speak.
All right, I missed it. All right. Ms. Butler, come right ahead.
I'm Irene D. Butler, and I live in Harmony. I do not live in that area, but I'm interested in that bridge being repaired or something put right there where you don't have to go some miles away. I have fond memories of the Lloyd Mill Road. I used to shell corn on a hand sheller and go up to the Lloyd Mill and have corn ground. I've used that road, and I still go that road, and I don't want to go miles away. I'm a conservative person. I don't want to waste gas. My car doesn't use much, or I wouldn't be down here. But I would like to say that if there's a will, there's a way, and nobody has enough money. and the more money you have, the shorter ways it goes. Now, I live cheaper than anybody else, but I'm not gonna ever get on welfare, and I wish Trump would do away with welfare. I believe in people working, and if you don't work, we neighbors will feed you. When I was a little girl, we did that. Nobody would do it now, but I've clocked myself where my mother used to cook 2 meals, 2 dishes, and I'd carry one, she'd carry one, and I've clocked it now, and it's 2 miles. There's nobody that would walk 2 miles now to serve. Yet we had time to sit on the front porch and hope a bumpty-bump truck would come along. But like the Cerise Road, you folks have just spent money on it. It's a good road, and I've changed my way of going to town because it rides so well. So it does. I do enjoy it, and thank y'all. And I don't know where I thank you or not, because you could have used that money and put on this bridge and kept it, because people could bump over it. Anyway, I'm just wanting to say that as an individual, I'd like to see the bridge repaired or a bridge right there. And I've been told by, now I don't know anything about construction of bridges, to my county commissioner, but I know how to build a house. That's what I've done. I built 244 houses, and I know how to do that, and I know how to be a good manager. But I would sure like to see the road stay there. I thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Ms.
Ms.
Butler.
Butler.
Just one point I'd like to make is that Ms. Butler probably is the only person.
Ms. Butler's deceased.
Ms. Irene is probably the only person in the room that was living when that bridge was built. So you could have been at the ribbon cutting. Maybe you were, as a small toddler. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Y'all make us proud when we go to the polls to vote.
Yes, ma'am. Any other comments? It's been an hour. I feel like we need to take a recess. Let's just make it very brief for about 5 minutes. We'll recess and then come back to the agenda, and that'll conclude the public hearing part of our meeting.
Before we go into recess,
Yes, sir.
can we get a chance to say something as well?
You want to do that? Sure.
Yes.
If you'd like to make a comment.
First, I want to thank everybody for coming out today to express your concerns on the bridge and Lloyd Mill Road. I would like to give my stance on the bridge as well. Just like many of you, I use this bridge, but not nearly as much as y'all. I live in the Loango community as I represent District 4, but if I'm in the area, I use the bridge as well. I don't want to have to go around. And I understand, just looking out amongst all of you, I see people that use it whether to go to church at Brooks or to go to work in Greenville or Chapman or to visit family in McKenzie. You know, it's a major route on your daily lives. I want to find the best solution for the county and also the best solution for the communities, because it affects Pigeon Creek, Buck Creek, Brooks, and Garden. And I'm sure there's some more that it affects, but those are some of the major communities that it affects in the north end of this county. With that said, I'm not in favor of closing the bridge until an alternate route is approved and construction has began. I won't get into much of what happened in 1971. Whether the county accepted or they did not, we can't change that now. Also, I know several people spoke today about possible misappropriations of money. That was before I was alive as well, so I don't want to get into that. But much more recently, everybody in the past 2 administrations have read in the paper where several roads have been paved. You've got to ask, why was this bridge or an alternate route not a priority then? And it's very evident to all of you as you've spoken today is that the commissioner didn't live on the road, or it would have been a priority then, and it should be a priority now. As I said before, I'm in favor of keeping it until we have an alternate route, and as most of you know, as President Truman said, the buck should stop here. It should stop here with all 5 of us sitting here We've got to work to find a solution, and we've got to work to make this right for all the communities we've talked about today.
All right, thank you, Kyle. Anybody else want to make a comment before we recess for a few minutes?
Yeah, let me get mine out of the way.
All
And
right.
I'm standing pretty much with Kyle, and look, I'm like the young lady that came up a while ago. I'm not real good at public speaking, and by doing that, I've got this written where I can maybe remember to hit most of these, and I'm fixing to regroup on some things that have been said by some of you, because I feel very much the same way you feel. Even though I don't live in District 4, last Tuesday when we were up there, probably the first time I've been across that bridge in 20 years. To be honest with you, I was up there the Sunday before and wouldn't cross it. I looked at it and I thought, there ain't no way that I'm fixing to cross this bridge. If you want to cross it, that's up to you. I'm telling you, I was afraid to cross it. But let me do this. I'm going to ask each one of you to bear with me for just a few minutes and hear me out. Not so much to speak to the citizens, but to my fellow commissioners. First, we should all keep in mind where this problem began, July of 1971. To help put that in some perspective, in July of 1971, I'd just finished my 10th grade year at Florida High School. At least 3 sitting up here with us today weren't born in 1971. With that in mind, think about how many different commissioners have sat here during that period of time. Over the past week, I, along with my fellow commissioners, with the help of the administrator, her staff, have researched all we could find on this since 1971. One item of interest we found was on November 10th of 1980, the then Covington County Commission received an opinion from the Attorney General of Alabama after requesting that opinion regarding whether or not the county had to accept Highway 55. They did not, but from that point it becomes confusing. Although it has been maintained by the county since that time, nothing major or specifically of any major has been done to the bridge. So at that time, what happened is really commissioners began to kick that can down the road. Commissioners argued mostly among themselves as to responsibility the bridge was, and so really nothing has been done. 47 years later, the only thing that's changed about the issue is the faces sitting on this commission. My position is, and has been since I took office, that we're not here to argue or kick cans down the road. We were each elected by the citizens of this county to resolve problems like this. Here we should do just that. I attended the last meeting on this matter March the 12th, 2013, not as a commissioner, but as a concerned citizen. This past Friday, to refresh my memory, I listened to the audio tape of that meeting. On that day, several citizens were in attendance and from the Pigeon Creek area and addressed the commission. Each who spoke made very valid points. Listening to that tape, I heard the then engineer and commissioners respond to how tax monies could be better spent on more travel or major road collectors. As I listened, I thought the commission and engineer's response was logic until you look at the logic used in determining the paving or new road construction in Covington County over the last 20 years. Obviously, major collectors from at least 2013 through November of 2016 took on a different meaning than how I define it. During that period, major collectors oftentimes took on the meaning of roads that led to the homes or properties of commissioners and or his families. I don't think that was the intended meaning. I also recognize that like many of the problems the commission has encountered, this is just another can being kicked down the road. This was neglected while pet projects were completed. One of the reasons I sought this seat was to start picking up the cans and stop these pet projects. Whether Lord Mill Road is a major collector by its true definition or not, it's important to those who live and travel that area. It gets them to work, to church, the grocery store, the doctor, and at times the hospital. It's important to each who use it, as I have described, and so it's important to me. I'm ready to resolve this issue. I know Commissioner Adams' feelings on this, and I'm asking the rest of you, my commissioners, to join in solving this now. Myself, Commissioner Adams, Commissioner Barton, one of our engineers, and the superintendent spent last Tuesday at the bridge and in that area searching for the answer. I feel certain we found it. I'm of strong opinion we should not kick this can again. We should not leave these folks with this problem, or for that matter, a future commission, as was done to us. We can solve this problem, and so we should.
It's pretty obvious, obvious from the comments that the commissioners have done more homework over this issue than they have in a long time. But I appreciate the thought. It does take thought, and as you address issues like this, I can assure you that it's being seriously considered. Every commissioner, the engineers certainly are looking at trying to consider all aspects. I think that's why the public was invited to come today, to make sure we didn't overlook the personal part of this. I'd mentioned a recess. If you want to talk for a few more minutes on this, we can do that. Joe or Kenneth, y'all have comments you want to make?
I do, but I'll be pretty brief about it. It's just like, excuse me, just like Tony said, we inherited this. We inherited a lot of problems, just like you would if you bought a piece of property or whatever. We are concerned about it. I don't think we're concerned about getting reelected, as people want to think, because all we're going to do is the best we can. There's been money spent elsewhere in the county that shouldn't have been spent there, and I didn't support it. Most of us here didn't. But we can't change anything. It's like yesterday's weather. It's over with, and we just got to deal with what we had to deal with. There's people that faced the issue 17 years ago today that they overcame. It was a lot bigger than what we're facing here. We as a community can overcome this. We're going to do what we can to make it right. I promise you that. And I didn't make any promises the whole time I ran for office, but I'm making you this one. We all went up there. We spent time under the bridge, surveying a route, talking with the engineers. They're on board with the state, trying to get some help with it to get an alternate route so that we can find a better solution to it. We want to spend the money where it's best for everybody. We want to think it's safe for everybody. And as far as the financial shape of the county, I think there may be a little misconception on that. We are in pretty good financial shape. That doesn't mean we have a lot of money. That means that in the last 6 years since I've been here, we haven't borrowed any money. We inherited a pretty big debt. We're trying to pay that debt off just like all of you do every day. We are concerned about the people in Red Level area, just as I'm concerned about the people in my district. And I can say this, since I've been here and worked with Kyle and Tony, that we do work close together. We sit and we talk every day. We meet, we talk on the phone, and we communicate with the engineer, with the administrator, with the chairman. This is probably as close an operation as I've ever been involved in as far as people working together for the solution. I know some of you have a personal agenda. Everybody wants the best for what they want, because it affects you. Well, we want to do it what affects you and what affects everybody else. They mentioned this gas tax, and I know that's coming up, and I wanted to comment on that, and I made a note of that. We supported a 3 cent a gallon gas tax a few years ago. When that got to legislature, they changed it to 9 cents. We had no one in the whole community to come and complain about the 3 cent tax. That money would have helped a lot towards some infrastructure that we're facing with today. But we're not going to support something, and when they get up there and change it, we'll be told you're a lie, and we're not going to do that. And I appreciate y'all working with us and being patient, but it's going to take a while. It's not going to be an easy fix, but we're going to fix it, and I think we can fix it in a timely manner with your help. Thank you.
Joe made reference early in conversation. He thought that an alternate route could possibly be built in 180 days.
That's what I think.
He has a lot more experience in dirt work, certainly, than I do, and so I thought that was an important note. Certainly may take longer. County government moves slowly, but just a thought. Ken?
Yeah, the other day whenever the bridge had the damage on the rail, the first thing I done was called our representative, Mike Jones. And I told him what's going on, so he said, get me some information. So I got with Lynn and Ron, and they went over there and took him some stuff, which started then. He has to go, and he's going today after lunch. He's going to take more information and try to get this worked. We're trying to make this project work quick. We're trying to get some money. Yeah, I know we was talking about the bridge in my area 3 years. This one is trying to be different. We're trying to get something brought to y'all quicker. We're trying to get something that's working, that's feasible, that can be done.
And I know everybody, you know, I understand your needs, but we all work together. I mean, we're part of Covington County. We're not District 1, District 2, District 3. We're Covington County. We're gonna work for Covington County. And that's what we try to do. And that's what we try to be sure that we make the money that we get appropriated to help y'all. We won't, and we're going out for this, cause yes, like Joe said, we are in better shape, but we're not, you know, just able to go out and spend a bunch of money. You got to be wise with what you do, because you can get yourself hurt quick. But we want to try to help what we can do for y'all. And we want to be as quick about it as possible. Like I say, talked with Mike again Thursday night, and he said yes. He said we're waiting on that. And he said what he has to do, he has to convince his people that this is a usable thing. We got, you know, everybody, the state of Alabama, everybody's got something they want. And we're lucky to have him, because he's probably going to be our next speaker. And he's already in the house, we're introducing the bills now that comes in to the legislation. So we have a plus there. So someone who will listen to us, and we can get in quicker and get some information back. So, you know, I know it's been issues over issues with this, and I understand that, you know, the things that's going on with this bridge, and it ain't something that we just all of a sudden looked at. And I will say, this commission is worked altogether different. Our goals are altogether different. It's not about paving our roads. I mean, just the little simple things of travel. This commission very seldom takes any money for travel. We don't ask for reimbursement from the county when we're going out doing our job. And I can vouch for that through our administrator, that we have monies in our coffers that was left, that we have not spent, that was allocated for travel, that we do not use. We don't go out and make up a bunch of miles and get some money. We don't do that. And I can say that for this group here, because we're trying to be different. We're trying to set the precedence of someone who does care about y'all, care about the county, and try to spend our money as best we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
I think I used my 33 minutes. Can I ask one real quick?
One question.
What's the chances that, I'm asking this of Lynn, what are the chances that 5 years from now, we'll have an abandoned bridge and no access back to 55?
I think from what you're hearing here, it'd be the zero chance.
Yeah.
I don't.
Zero chance.
Zero.
Zero chance?
Yeah.
And
I think the
paying.
commission is,
That will be remembered.
what I,
That'll be
absolutely.
fine.
Well, I'm meeting, I'm just a quick note, like I said, Mike Jones is meeting with the highway director today after lunch, and I'm meeting with him Tuesday with the commission. We're actually gonna go up and speak to him on this issue, so it is a very important topic for us. So we're doing all we can to try to procure funds we can get this project done.
And I would suggest to you this, that we want the state to help us with this, because we believe from 1971 there was a commitment from the state. When I first became a commissioner 20-something years ago, the word given to me was that the state had expressed that they would provide an alternate route. They would cover the cost, and that's been many years ago. We're going to call that in. The problem we face is just proving that. But we think that with Mike and Senator Holly helping us, that we'll be able to convince the Department of Transportation to work with us, cooperate with us, and if we have to, we'll share the cost. Ultimately, if we have to, I think we can find a way to get it done with internal funds, but it just means we don't do some other things we're looking for. But we're hopeful to gain funds and get the job done, and I think there's a commitment here. One more comment? And,
Look, I didn't use my 3 minutes. The alternate route y'all were talking about.
Yeah.
Several years ago, I don't know exactly how many, this guy had a wreck on the bridge.
Yeah.
Deceased. The state closed the 4-lane, and everybody, including the double-deck trucks and all, come across that bridge. Now, if it had been an alternate route, they still couldn't have got through, because it was on this side of the bridge. That the alternate routes are B.
Well,
And the wreck was on the bridge, and I forgot.
the alternate routes that are being looked at, if you
The
notice,
alternate route would have been closed because the bridge was closed.
well, but the
The 4-lane bridge was closed.
Oh, the 4-lane bridge, yeah, I got you.
The guy had the wreck on the 4-lane bridge.
Right,
They shut the 4-lane down
yeah,
on the north side.
I got it.
Well, an alternate route, they couldn't have bypassed everybody.
But that could happen
Point
in
made.
any direction. I mean, it could have been further up the road and still blocked it. What I'm saying is that alternate route, had that wreck happened 6 miles above the north part of it, the alternate route still wouldn't have done us any good. I think there could always be that issue.
What I was
That's-
thinking is, it benefited the state also.
Sure, we understand.
Can you imagine how many cars would be backed up if that bridge was down 2 hours?
Yeah.
Well, we're very hopeful that the state Department of Transportation will work with us on funding. And we do have that meeting set next week, so we'll be glad to report back from that visit. I don't know that we'll leave there with a commitment in hand, but we're hopeful to get encouragement from that meeting anyway.
Ms.
Yes.
Griffin has a comment.
I'm sorry.
Ms. Griffin.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have, after this meeting and everything, a date set up where we can return to find out what was said and what was done?
Yes, ma'am. If we have, as soon as we have answers or something to give, we'll report it at every meeting. So every second and fourth Tuesdays at 9 o'clock we'll meet, and if there's additional information, we'll share it when we get it. Be glad for you to come to any of those meetings.
Greg, can I just make
9
just one
o'clock.
point real quick?
Yes, sir.
I can't express enough, I heard mention of the gas tax, and one of your fellow citizens here talking about the gas tax. I would ask all of y'all to support that gas tax if you can. As it stands right now, Covington County has the second most amount of bridges in the whole state of Alabama. We've got 284 structures over 20 foot in length, and more than 56% of our bridges are over 50 years old. So we've got there's 159 of these bridges out there that's in communities just like yourself. So this is what we face every day. So I just ask for funding purposes that y'all do support a gas tax, because our revenues have been flat for years.
For 25 years.
For 25 years, but everything's going up in cost.
Let me make another comment first, and then we'll come back to you. We've taken shots at previous administrations. I was in 3 of those, but I wasn't here in 1971, and that's when all of this began. And you wonder, why would the commission agree to accept this road from the state Department of Transportation? It was a state highway, Highway 55. They built a new highway, and the commission agreed to take it. You think that wasn't wise, because then you had maintenance costs and you had this bridge issue. But probably, if you listen to the Attorney General's opinion, let me just read a quick paragraph from it, and we will take a recess quickly. But it was concluded, this is the Attorney General opinion, it was concluded that the state could abandon roads built by the state from the state highway system, but it could not force the counties in which these roads were located to take over the roads. It was said in that opinion that when the state, he's referencing in this opinion an earlier opinion, that when the state builds roads, there's an implied contract that the roads would be kept in repair by the state highway department. A road constructed by the state remains part of the state highway system unless the state abandons or vacates the road, or the county of its own volition or choice accepts the road into the county road system. However, there's no authority for the state highway department to force a county to take over abandoned roads and maintain them. So the situation faced was, this was a state road. State provided alternate route, Highway New 55. And I think the county, with these thoughts in mind, said, you know what, if we leave this as a state road, then one day the bridge is gonna run out of useful life, they're gonna close the bridge, and that's gonna be the end of it. The folks in this community will be poorly served by that. So the only way to make sure that there's an alternate route, I think the commission said, let's take it as a county road, and then we'll have, that'll be a priority when the time comes. I don't think that was necessarily a bad decision. I think that when they looked at the big picture, they thought that for the long term, that gave the best opportunity for serving the citizens in that Pigeon Creek community in the best way possible. So just trying to put previous administrations in a better light, because there are an awful lot of facts and circumstances that were being considered without a doubt. One more comment, and we're going to recess, as I said, for about 10 minutes. Yes, ma'am.
Lynn, you told us about supporting the tax, the gas tax. Okay, is that, and it would help with bridges and roads?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, is that gas tax
No, it
No.
hasn't passed legislation. It was tabled,
So in other words, if we support it, our bridge is not gonna get built because.
no, I'm not saying that. But just ask for support for the gas tax, because like I say, it's a need.
Because we'll face this same problem on the next bridge and the next bridge and the next road. So this problem is ongoing. He's suggesting that for long-term benefit. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You're gonna have another route for us, so that bridge that's already bypassed
Right.
won't get the attention for this gas tax.
Well, we understand, yeah.
And so you want us to support it, but our bridge is gonna be.
The resurfacing roads, I mean, we get $535,000 a year in federal funds. That's all the money we get a year. It costs $170,000 a mile just to resurface a road. And this bridge, and we're looking anywhere from like 2.3 to 2.9 is a replacement cost. So it would take several years of funding to possibly do that. Just for that
Federal
one.
funding. I mean,
Federal funds.
but we understand your points made, and that doesn't change the need for the funding, but if all minds
county
are,
as a whole, like like the Commissioner Norley said,
if all minds are clear,
well, it's just the county as a whole. There's a lot out there. A lot out there.
point made on both sides. If all minds are clear, we're gonna recess. We'll be back in at 10:30. Thank you.